So whatever we completed so far, let's list out based on those completed topics, how you have to prepare, what questions you can expect when you attend for interview, or else, and how you have to focus or how you have to answer to the questions. We'll discuss all those points. The same you can apply for any concept, anything we are going to discuss in our classes. First, we'll go and list out what we have completed so far. So far we have discussed the concepts like user creation, and we discussed about offerings and options, creating implementation project, accounting calendar, currency, chart of accounts, so primary ledger, legal entity, and we discussed about P2P and O2C cycles, and also we discussed about enterprise structure. This is what we completed. Of course, in the last session, we have seen role assignment, and based on the role assignment, you can perform the transactions. That we'll see later. After completing, we can discuss. So these are the topics we completed so far. So how your preparation should be with respect to interview preparation or proper understanding, we'll see. So somebody is saying there is some issue, the audio. I suggest them to disconnect and connect again. Okay, you can disconnect and connect again so that the issue will be fixed. Join audio. So let me write some message to them. Okay, please disconnect and connect. So if you have any audio issue from your end, it may be fixed. Fine. So let's talk about this. We completed, but when it comes to your preparation, it may be for interview purpose or any other purposes, how you have to prepare, where you have to focus. You get most of the questions from which area, and how you are answering, that is important. If you are answering, that is not enough. If you answer, you may get very less score or high score. Okay. So the answer what you are giving, that should help you to get the top score for that question. So that's how you have to prepare. So when you talk about user creation, so mostly when we talk about user creation, they will ask you how to create the user. When you talk about user creation, you can explain user we can create by using the security console. We have to provide username and password, and what are the roles we have to assign. You can assign the roles to user. So when you talk about user creation, there could be another question. If you are going to work as implementation consultant, what are the basic roles you have to assign to the user? The basic roles are application implementation consultant and IT security manager. They can ask you what is the purpose of application implementation consultant and IT security manager. With the help of application implementation consultant role, you can perform the setups. That means you can implement any application. By using IT security manager role, you can create the users and you can manage the roles. Managing roles means you can assign the roles to users and you can create the custom roles also. We'll see how to create our own roles, which we call as custom roles in upcoming sessions. Apart from this, they can ask you the question, how we can set password, policy, or user creation rule, how we can set by using the user category. You can create the category, user category. Within that category, you can set what is the password policy and what is the user creation rule. Those all you can set up. Mostly these are the questions you can expect when you talk about user creation. So when you talk about offerings and options, mostly you don't get any questions. Okay, this is just in fresh instance one-time activity. When you talk about offerings and options, you should aware how to enable the offerings and options. And they may ask you some questions like, say my client is subscribed for financials SCM. Can we use HCM also? Will Oracle allow you to access HCM? Yes, Oracle will allow you to access HCM, but we are not supposed to use HCM applications. When we are working on the financials application, what level of access we require? Say if you are going to use payables or receivables or any application you can take, we need employees information. So being a finance and SCM consultant, you will be able to create employees which belongs to HCM. That means you can perform the dependency setups, but if you don't have access to, or if you don't subscribe to HCM applications, human capital management application, even Oracle is allowing you, you should not use. If you use, there will be penalty from Oracle side. Since these instances are managed by Oracle, at any point of time, they can conduct the audit. If they find out you are using so-and-so applications where you don't have a subscription, they can just they can take the action where you have to pay some penalties to Oracle. So that is the reason always we have to use for which offerings and options our client take in the subscription, those only we have to implement and we have to use for the client. When you talk about implementation project, you may have a questions, is it mandatory we have to create implementation project? Answer is no. Implementation project is not mandatory. Without creating implementation project also, we can perform the setups. What purpose we are creating implementation project? To perform the setups. That is a primary reason. So if you don't create implementation project, you can perform the setups from search page, global search. But from global search page, you cannot perform all the setups. So wherever scope selection is applicable, those setups you cannot perform from the search page. For that reason, you can go to FSM page, FSM home page. There you can select your offering and option and it will list out the tasks. There you can find selected scope. You can complete certain setups from the search page, which are not possible from search page. Those you can complete from FSM home page. And so why we have to create implementation project, we should aware. So what is the, if I'm not going to create implementation project, what opportunity we will lose? If you don't create implementation project, you cannot move the setters from one instance to another instance as a functional consultant. If you create implementation project, what are the setups we are doing from that implementation project, you can extract those setups and the system will create one data file. That data file you can load in the other instance. That's how you can move setups from one instance to another instance. This point we did cover, we will see later. So with the help of implementation project, we can move the setups from one instance to another instance by using the concept called as configuration packages. Configuration packages. The other question you may get, after creating implementation project and after performing the setups, if you delete implementation project, is there any issue? No issues. If you delete implementation project, So data is not going to be deleted, which is stored in the database. If implementation project is not there, you cannot navigate to specific task. And again, you can create implementation project and you can navigate to the relevant task and you can find out the setups what we did. The other question you can expect, how many implementation projects we have to create? By default, we create one implementation project for each country. For multiple countries also, you can create one project, but that is not recommended. When you are doing the setups, if you are using one implementation project for multiple countries, setup point of view, you will get into some confusions. It will create some mess. So it's always recommended that create separate project for each and every country. And can we create implementation projects separately for financials, SCM, HCM? Yes, you can create, but we never do that. Not required. We create as one implementation project. Whatever the offerings and options we are creating, those we are going to implement, those we select into that implementation project. That's how we do reality. Okay. How many users we have to create? That is another point you can notice when we are doing the implementation, how many users we have to create. As a part of implementation, each consultant can create their own user to start working on the system. For finance user, finance consultant, one user, SCM consultant, separate user, HCM consultant, different user. This is how we create separate users, will start working on it. Once we're done with the implementation as a part of implementation, how many business users are going to work on this system? How many employees are going to work on the system? Accordingly, we have to create the users. But as a part of implementation, how many consultants are working on this implementation? Those many users we can create. Or else if they are okay, we can use one or two users, okay, which we can share across the project team members. So these are the points we have to understand when we talk about user creation and offerings and options implementation project. So please notice the way how you have to explain. And accounting calendar. What are the questions you may get from accounting calendar? So how do you create accounting calendar? Okay, how do you create accounting calendar? They can ask you the task name also. Okay, to create accounting calendar, what is the task name? The task name is manage accounting calendars. By using manage accounting calendars, we can create accounting calendar. The next question could be, how do you create accounting calendar? Please explain. When you talk about accounting calendar creation, you can say, first we have to provide accounting calendar name and we have to select the period frequency and starting date for accounting calendar. And we can set the period format and how many adjustment periods are required. Adjustment period frequency we have to provide. And this is how we can create accounting calendar. This is what we have to answer. Okay, this is how you have to answer if you get question like how to create accounting calendar. The next questions what you can expect is, what is the use of adjusting period? Your answer should be, so always we suggest minimum one adjustment period for every accounting calendar which we create. If you have adjustment period, you can record adjustment entries in the end of the year when you are closing your books. Again, adjustment period is not mandatory. So we suggest as a best practice, if client is not interested, so we create accounting calendar as per their requirement. Okay, the purpose of adjustment period is to record the adjustment entries when we are closing the books in the end of the year. Can't we enter the adjustment transactions in the system without adjustment period? Yes, we can record the adjustment entries without adjustment period also. You may enter the adjustment transactions in the last period of your accounting calendar when you are closing the books. But it's always good if you can have a separate period so that easily you can track all the adjustment transactions if you maintain in separate period and you can take the action on that period related to that adjustment transactions. Another question could be, once you create accounting calendar, can we do any changes to the accounting calendar? It is not at all recommended to change the accounting calendar, and again it is not possible also. You may go and do some changes like changing the date range, etc. Okay, that system will allow, but it is not recommended. When you are creating accounting calendar, you can choose. If you do some changes, what system will do is it will identify the date gaps and overlapping. Say system created accounting calendar Jan 1st to 31st, but you are going and doing changes, Jan you are making as 30. Then Feb starts with the 1st Feb. System will identify there is a gap between Jan and Feb. So if there is any gap, that will become issue in our accounting calendar. Or else you created accounting calendar for certain year, for certain financial year, and what you are doing is you are going to do some changes to the date range what system defined. Say Jan 1st to Jan 31st, and in the second period you are starting from Jan 31st to Feb 29. That means you are again using the same date in other period. That system will understand as overlapping. So you should not touch any period date ranges what system is created. The other question you can expect is, can we add additional adjustment periods or additional periods in accounting calendar? So we should not, we cannot add it. We cannot add once you create accounting calendar. So you cannot add any additional periods that could be actual period or adjustment period. The other question you may expect, on what base you create accounting calendar? The simple answer is based on the country financial year, we create accounting calendar. So these are the questions you can expect when you talk about accounting calendar. So when you talk about currency, you remember what are the different type of currencies we have. What are the different type of currencies we have? Functional currency, foreign currency, stat currency. Stat is not at all a currency. Since in our applications that we call as currency, please make a note. So what is the difference between functional currency and foreign currency? The functional currency is nothing but local currency where client is operating the business. Apart from that local currency, all other currencies we call as foreign currencies. So remember this point. Do we need to create currencies in the system? The answer is no. All the currencies Oracle is providing as seeded data, you no need to create any currencies. This is what you have to understand. So again, there is a concept called as the rates and all. When we touch that concept, we will talk about. As of now, what we have seen or what we have completed, accordingly we are discussing. You can expect more questions on chart of accounts. You can expect more questions on chart of accounts. Simply, they will ask you the question. So, what purpose do we need to create accounting calendar? Your simple answer should be, based on client reporting requirements, we have to create the accounting calendar. Okay, the answer should be, so what is the purpose we create accounting calendar? We discussed to capture the details of the transaction. For our understanding purpose, we discussed that content, but you remember the ultimate purpose is as per reporting requirements. If you are capturing the description with the description, what you will do? You will produce the reports. So you will get many questions related to chart of accounts and enterprise structure. Based on that question related answers, they will take the decision how much you are strong in these applications. So let's talk about chart of accounts. We can expect many questions on chart of accounts. The first one I'm saying, so what purpose we have to create the chart of accounts? Okay. So the chart of accounts always we have to create to meet the business reporting requirements. How do you create the chart of accounts? You can answer. We have seen how to create the chart of accounts. So if you want to create the chart of accounts, first we have to create the value sets and we create chart of account structure. Within the structure, we create the segments. To segments, we assign value sets and segment labels, and we create chart of account structure instance. After creating chart of account structure instance, we have to deploy accounting flex field. After deploying accounting flex field, we create segment values. This is what we have to explain. During the segment values, we set value attributes. You should be able to explain by following this sequence, what exactly we are doing. Or in other words, I can say how I am explaining. If you are able to explain, that's what they need. Okay, if you know the content, if you are struggling to explain, even if you are expressing what reality, what we do in the system, the way what you are presenting, if that is not up to the mark, they don't count it as a valid answer. Okay, so please make a note of all these points. The next question you can get, how many segments you can create by using the chart of account? You no need to explain in very elaborated manner. The simple answer is max you can create 30 segments. And other question is minimum how many segments we have to create? 2 segments. Okay, minimum how many segments we have to create? 2 segments. And as a part of your implementation, how many segments you created? If some CV, some profile says they have some experience, they get this kind of question. They are doing interview for the candidate who is saying the candidate has 4 or 5 years of experience. Definitely they'll ask the question, in your so-and-so project, how many segments you created in the chart of account? Mostly the answer like this. We created chart of account with 7 segments. Those segments are, one is balancing segment, the other one is natural account segment, and we used cost center segment. Along with that, 2 segments we used as a future 1 and future 2. 5 segments are completed. Remaining 2 or 3 segments they address depending on the business. Okay, one they may say intercompany segment we have, since they want to track the transactions across their branches. Another segment may be the product line or process line or service type or service line, etc. It depends. You can take example from our discussions, what we discussed very detailed level in the previous classes. Okay, this is what you have to answer. How many segments you create in your current project or previous project? So definitely you have to include future segments. You can say like balancing segment, natural account segment. Definitely in every project you could say cost center segment, nothing but department segment. Apart from that, 2, 3 you can add. So this is how just you can answer. Okay, reality. So when we are part of implementation project, so this is how we create the segments in the chart of account. The same you can give as an answer. And they can ask you the question, what are the labels are mandatory when you create the chart of accounts? Which labels are mandatory? The primary balancing segment label and the natural account segment label. The next question would be, what is the use of primary balancing segment label? By using the primary balancing segment label, system will make sure that the debits and credits are getting balanced with the same balancing segment value and amounts also. It will make sure that in every transaction, the debit and the credit lines, the balancing segment value is same, and debit amount is equal to credit amount. This is what the primary balancing segment can watch. To make sure that every transaction is balancing with the same balancing segment value and amount, for that purpose, we use the primary balancing segment value. I think that we not yet covered. Okay, in the next session, we will come to know that. Okay, once we complete this primer ledger related task, we already created primer ledger, we assign the roles, we have to assign the primary ledger to GL roles. After assigning, we can create the transactions in GL. There you can see proof of the statement. Okay, the primary balancing segment label purpose is to balance each and every transaction, to balance the balancing segment values and debit and credit amounts in every transaction. We have to use primary balancing segment label. What is the use of natural account segment label? Okay, what is the use of natural account segment label. Already we discussed and we have seen the proof of natural account segment label. If you assign natural account segment label, system will add few additional attributes to that segment related value definitions. So what attributes it can add? So if you assign natural account segment label to any segment, it will add labels like account type, third party control account, reconcile, and financial category. These are the 4 attributes it can add to the relevant segment related values. By default, for every segment related values, you can find summary, allow budgeting, allow posting as a value attributes. Okay, this is what we have to understand. So other questions they may ask, like can we take legal entity as a one of the segment in the chart of account? We discussed very clearly as a part of enterprise structure. So in which scenario you can take legal entity and which scenario no need to take. Even if you take, so what is the advantage? These points also we discussed. If somebody is going to ask you, can we take legal entity as a one of the segment in the chart of account? Yes, you can take. If you want to balance the transactions at legal entity level, you may take legal entity as one segment, and you can assign primary balance and segment label to legal entity. And other question could be, how many balancing segments we can have within the chart of accounts? How many balancing segments we can have as we can use in the chart of accounts? 3. Primary balance and segment, primary balance and segment label, natural account segment label, primary balance and segment label, secondary balance and segment label, third balance and segment label. These are the 3 labels we have, and these 3 labels we can use in our chart of account for different segments, so that you can have 3 balancing segments in the chart of accounts. Related to these balancing segments, we discussed one point in the last session as a best practice. What is that? If you are clear, you can answer what we discussed. Simple answer if you are clear. Anyone, please. As a best practices, we discussed a few points, right? In those points, there is a one point related to balancing segment. What is that? Hope you can hear me.
Use less number of segments.
Sorry?
Using less number of segments.
Allow posting and allow budgeting.
No. What did we discuss about balancing segments? Just last session only we discussed. Anyone, please?
Yes, LAXMAN. Best practice is to use only one primary balancing segment.
Exactly. This is the point we discussed. Okay. Please read and remember. Whatever we discussed and whatever we did, try to practice so that you can remember. We discussed when you talk about balancing segments, we can have up to 3 balancing segments. If you have a 3 balancing segments, that will create a big mess. So you never try to educate the client. Frankly speaking, don't try to educate the clients. You can use up to 3 balancing segments in the chart of accounts. Always you ask the question, so what level you want to balance the transaction to produce the reports and to find out your profitability, then they'll come up with the so-and-so segment. Make that segment as a balancing segment. So by following the same point we discussed as the best practices, when you design the chart of account, you have to suggest only one segment as a balancing, only one. Here we discussed. These are the points. So only one balancing segment. Always suggest to the client to have a one balancing segment. You have to remember all these points. Right? So that's what you can answer. And the chart of accounts related, you can expect many questions also. Okay, if you remember and whatever we discussed, how we created chart of accounts, you will be able to answer accordingly. They can ask you the question, why do we create chart of account structure instance? that you can explain as per our system. So we cannot use the chart of account structure at the time of primary ledger creation. So that is the reason we have to make a copy of chart of account structure as instance. Instance is the one which we can select at the time of primary ledger. By using instance only, you can record the transactions. You can capture the description of the transaction. So why we have to create instance? It's a mandatory. If you say this, they may agree. For that, you can explain the truth. So since we are using the different products in the Fusion applications, not only Oracle owned product, Oracle acquired products like Hyperion and different products, to facilitate the data flows and to synchronization of this chart of account concept with the other applications to come up with the logic and streamlined data flows, they introduce the instance. Reality, the instance is not mandatory. With the chart of accounts, you will be able to perform the transaction. That is the reason they made it as a mandatory. You may touch this point. Otherwise, you can just say, so it is not, it is a mandatory. With the chart of accounts, you cannot record the transaction. If you want to use the chart of account, we have to create the chart of account structure instance. Okay, chart of account structure instance. So this is the point you have to explain. And another point is when you talk about chart of account, instance level, you can find one checkbox. Okay. So allow dynamic combination creation allowed. They can test you what is the purpose of that allow dynamic combination creation checkbox. If you enable that checkbox, system will allow you to create the new code combinations. The system, if you want to create any code combination, that checkbox should be enabled. And they can ask you the question, can we increase? Okay, can we increase the value set size? We created value set definition time maximum size as 4 for most of the segments. I guess for account we created 5. Can we increase the value set size? The value size? Yes, that is possible. At any point of time you can increase, but we cannot decrease it. Because already we set 4, we enter few values. If you set to 3, what system has to understand about existing values? So you can increase, but you cannot decrease. Already we discussed the point, you cannot add any additional segments into chart of accounts. Reality system will allow you, but you should not add. Okay, this is very important point. If you try to add, system will allow, but we should aware what to do, what not to do. If you add any additional segments, system will create data inconsistency issues. There will be big risk for existing data. We never add any additional segments in the chart of account. So with the 4C of future, always we suggest the client to have minimum 2 future segments. If they are not interested, at least we suggest the business to have 1 as a future segment. So these are the points we have to understand. And what is the use of cost center segment label? They can ask you the question. You can answer if you are going to implement Oracle Fusion expense application or Oracle Fusion fixed assets application, the cost center segment label is mandatory. Can we assign one label to multiple segments? No, you cannot. It will allow you to do it when you submit for a deployment. It will identify that is an issue. They can ask you the question, why we have to deploy the accounting flex fill? To validate the chart of accounts, whatever we have created, we have to submit accounting flex fill for a deployment. So what system can verify in the deployment process? Already we discussed. When you submit the deployment, system will verify that 2 mandatory segment labels are assigned in every chart of account. If you have multiple, you have only 1. So in our chart of accounts, the mandatory segment labels are assigned or not. Which is a mandatory labels, primary balance in segment label and natural account segment label. So that you can assign to any segments, but reality we assign primary balance and segment label for company. If not company, with what names you can call, that point also we discussed in the last session. What we discussed, if it is not a company, you may call it as a business unit. or you may call it as a branch, outlet, or store, business area, etc. And if your business units are equal to your legal entity, your primary balance and segment label can be legal entity also. It could be anything. Okay, so that is a point you have to understand. Natural account segment is always account only. So these are the points which you have to notice, and they can ask you the questions: how do you create value set? Okay, how do you create value set? You have to remember everything. What we are doing, we have to remember. So how do you create value set? First, we'll provide the value set code. Then you can select the value set is belongs to which application or say module, which application. So, and what is the type of value set? Okay, you have to select as independent or dependent. Ideally independent, you can select data type. Okay, you can select as a text, and the subtype alphanumeric and text you can select, and maximum size you can specify. The rest of fields also we discussed: minimum value, maximum value, zero fill. Okay, these all value check boxes we discussed. Those points you can remember. You don't need to address all those. Simply you can say we provide the name and we set the validation type. Okay, you don't need to say what value you set. Simply you can say we'll set validation type, and we select the data type and a subtype and maximum length for that value set values which you are going to enter. This is how we create the value set. So this is what we have to remember. And they will ask you the question: what are the different value attributes we have? So including the default value attributes and account related value attributes, you can explain. We have a different value attributes like summary, allow budgeting, allow posting, account type, control account, and financial category reconcile. These are the different value attributes we have. So once we start working on that, we'll understand one by one. By this time, we are aware of few value attributes types. In the same way, what are the different type of segment labels we have? So we came across a few segment labels. Going forward, we'll understand few more. Exactly which labels we have, you will see in case of rapid implementation concept. Very soon we will work on the rapid implementation. There you can see list of segment values which Oracle is providing. As of now, we used and we have seen the segment labels are primary balance and segment label, natural account segment label, cost center and intercompany. These four we use. These are very primary. The rest optional things, anyway, we'll come to know all those. So these are the points you can expect. Okay, these are the points you can expect if you are attending interview. It could be a fresher kind of interview or experience based interview. These are the questions you can expect. So if you are attending as a fresher, they just touch you each and every point, how to navigate, how to create, what fields you enter, such kind of details also they can ask you. And other point you may get as a question: how many chart of account structure instances we can create by using one chart of account structure? You can create multiple. By using one chart of account structure, you can create multiple instances. That means the chart of account structure is going to act as a template. Okay, the chart of account structure, it is going to act as a template. And these are the points, please focus on and remember and prepare accordingly. So please make a note how I am answering. You no need to explain too much. Okay, you no need to refer so and so other details. How I am explaining, try to adapt the same way, so that will help you. That's how they need answer, very simple, and exactly you have to touch that point what they're asking, relevant answer you have to fetch. When you talk about primary ledger, they can ask you the question, how do you create the primary ledger? Simply you can say, by selecting calendar, currency, chart of accounts and accounting method, we can create the primary ledger. They can ask you the question, what do you mean by accounting method? So we will understand the purpose of accounting method when we are working on the payables application. As of now, we didn't discuss very detailed level. We discussed simple point. That point is we can use the accounting method to create the accounting entries in subledger applications. In any subledger application, if you want to create accounting entries, the accounting method is required. Accounting method consists of accounting rules to generate the accounting entries in subledger application. As of now, you no need to focus on this answer. So when we see the accounting method concept in the payables application or any other application, you can understand. For now, you just make a note of this point. What is the use of accounting method which we are selecting in primary ledger? By using accounting method, you can create accounting entries in the subledger applications. So accounting method consists of accounting rules. Just make a note of these 2 points. The 2 points are, by using accounting method, you can create accounting entries in subledger applications. That is the first point. Second point is how it will create accounting entries in subledger application, because it contains accounting rules inside of it. If you are creating invoice in the payables, so it will create accounting entry for invoice. The rule, when you create invoice in the payables, which accounting entry need to be created, that rules are available in the accounting method. So remember this point, we'll work on it. How to create our own accounting method also. We'll have a separate session on that. Fine. So that's all about it, about primary ledger. And other questions you can expect. What is the use of retained earnings account? Okay, you can explain retained earnings account is nothing but surplus account, or you can call it as net income. The variance between revenue and expense will result as a retained earnings account. What is the nature of retained earnings account? They can ask you the question. You can say owner's equity. We discussed account types: expense, revenue, asset, liability, ownership. The retained earnings account nature is owner's equity. This is what you can answer. And how many primary ledgers we have to create? Okay, as a part of implementation, how many primary ledgers we have to create? Now, they will touch the point, whatever we discussed as a part of enterprise structure. Anyone, if you are very clear, answer, otherwise don't give a try, not required. So if you are very clear, I am asking the questions on what we completed already, what we discussed already. So anyone, if you are clear, you can answer. My question is, how many primary ledgers we have to create as a part of implementation? If you are sure, answer, otherwise leave it.
If we have the one currency, one primary ledger.
My question is primary ledger. Yeah, okay, that is one answer. Any other answers?
One primary ledger we can create for the
Okay.
implementation.
Only one.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's nothing wrong, but you should not answer in that way. Okay. So if they ask you how many primary ledgers we have to create as a part of implementation, here you need clarity, how you can decide on your own. You have to ask them, like, or else you can tell them. Okay. So when we do the implementation, totally depends. We are doing the implementation for how many countries. For each country, we have to create one primary ledger. In the same country, if they need more than one primary ledger, that is also possible. That you don't need to address. You don't need to talk about more than one primary ledger also you can create. Simply you can say, for each country, we create one primary ledger. Based on that, if they are going to ask any questions, accordingly you can respond. How many primary ledgers we have to create means that always depends on country. Okay, somebody said currency, that is okay, but you have to talk about country. So how many countries we are doing the implementation, those many primary ledgers we have to create. So one question you can expect, like how to create the primary ledger. Other question you can expect, what is the use of retained earnings account? How do you decide? Third question you can expect, how do you decide how many primary ledgers are required? And few other questions they can test you to understand the depth of your knowledge. Can we create 10 primary ledgers for one country? Can we create? Can you answer, anyone?
Yes, it's possible.
Hmm.
Can you create 10 primary ledgers?
Yes, it's possible, sir.
Sorry?
It's possible, sir.
Yeah, possible. If client want to have 10 or 100 primary ledgers, we can create. Okay, say for example, they have 10 branches in India. For each branch, they want to have a separate primary ledger. Yes, we can create, but that we call as very, very bad practice. The maintenance will become huge task. So every month end, you have to work on every primary ledger, closing periods, opening periods, many activities that would become that will create unnecessary maintenance. And again, that is not going to add any value addition for our application solution. So we can create the possible, and there should be a reason we can create, but really not required. The next question you may face, like, what do you mean by global chart of accounts? So answer is the chart of accounts which you are going to use for multiple countries, primary ledger creation purpose, that you can call as global chart of account, or simply you can say you don't need to refer primary ledger. If you are going to use a single chart of accounts for multiple countries, that chart of account we call as sorry, global chart of accounts. You are using single chart of accounts for multiple countries means for multiple countries, whatever the primary ledgers you are going to have, in those primary ledgers you are going to use. That is the meaning of it, but simply you can address. So the chart of account which you are going to use for multiple countries, that you can call as global chart of accounts. So do you recommend global chart of accounts or country specific chart of accounts? Always you can say, always we recommend global chart of accounts. You can say, if already you have experience, and if a CV says you worked for 3, 4, 5 projects, if there is a scenario where you implemented for multiple countries, definitely your answer would be, in my so-and-so project, we implemented for so-and-so client for 3 countries. So there we use a global chart of account. We use a single chart of accounts for 3 countries when we are defining the primary ledgers. This would be the answer. Okay, so always we recommend global chart of accounts. What is the advantage of global chart of accounts? If the chart of account is global, it will just support your global consolidations. Okay, if you have a different chart of accounts, again all the chart of accounts we have to map and all. Your chart of account is same, so easily data can flow across the different ledgers with that mapping. So that can be facilitated, and maintenance also will become easy. You no need to maintain separate chart of accounts entering the data. Say for example, you want to add one expense account into chart of account. If you have a separate chart of accounts for 10 countries, 10 separate chart of accounts, as per your business, you need one more new expense account you want to add. You have to add in the 10 chart of accounts, since you have a 10 separate. If you have a common chart of account, which you call as global chart of account, if you enter in the same chart of account, that can be accessed by 10 countries. Okay, that's how you can minimize the duplication. You don't need to enter 10 chart of accounts you have to enter the same account in 10 times in the same instance. It's kind of duplication across the chart of accounts. If you have a single, that can be used by all the countries' businesses. And the reporting point of view, also it will facilitate great advantages. So that is the reason always we recommend single chart of accounts or nothing but global chart of accounts. So what do you mean by legal entity? Okay, you may have a next question. And one more point here you can notice, they may ask you like, once you create primary ledger, can we change calendar, currency, chart of accounts and accounting method? This is a question. Anyone can answer to this question, please. If you are very clear, please make a note of these points. Don't mind. If you are following all the classes and if you are preparing, then better you can answer. Others also can answer, no issues, but that will become unnecessary information for all of us. If you are clear, you can answer. That is useful for everyone. My question is, once you create the primary ledger, can we change calendar, currency, chart of accounts and accounting method? What is your answer?
No, we can't change this.
No.
What you cannot change, what you can change.
Accounting
Currency
method.
and accounting calendar, those things cannot change.
Accounting calendar, those means what are those? Don't mind. Please list out. The question is very clear. You should not answer like this.
Accounting calendar and currency, we can't change this.
Okay, what you can change?
Nothing can change. Nothing we added and changed.
Any other answer? Okay, done.
create that.
We can
Done.
change accounting method.
Yes, that is the answer. Okay. Once you create the primary ledger, you cannot change calendar, currency, chart of account, but any point of time you can change the accounting method. You have to be very clear on this. See, you prepared very well, you gone through each and everything, and if you are missing basic points, everyone can understand what we are. Okay, focus on each and every point. Okay, when we were setting the retained earnings account, we discussed that point also. So these all are freezed accounting method you can change at any point of time. I was addressing that point, reason you have to notify. So that's all about. You can just expect the questions from the primary lecture. Okay, if you are clear about what we discussed, read and remember and make a note of each and every point what we are discussing. That will help you when you attend the interview. But primarily, these are the questions you can expect when you talk about these areas. Now, the next concept what we discussed is legal entity. So, how do you create the legal entity? Okay, they can ask you the question, how do you create the legal entity? You can say to create the legal entity, first we have to create the legal address. By using the legal address, you can create legal entity. This is how you can answer. They can come up with a cross question. Could you please explain very detailed how we can create the legal entity? Then you have to say, first we have to provide legal entity name. The same is applicable for primary ledger also. If they are asking the question, how do you create primary ledger? The simple answer, which generally expected is, by selecting calendar, currency, chart of accounts and accounting method, you can create the primary ledger. If they ask you, could you please explain very detailed level? Then you can say, first we have to give the primary ledger name. Then you can provide the description optionally. Then first we have to select chart of accounts, then chart of accounts structure instance that you can highlight. Okay, you can say chart of accounts or you can point as we have to select chart of account structure instance. Okay, chart of account structure instance. We cannot select chart of account structure, right? Only instance we can select. And we have to select calendar, currency, accounting method. This is how we create the chart of accounts, primary ledger. They can ask you the question, which accounting method you have to select? Standard accrual. When we have a session on this, you will understand a few other accounting methods also, what purpose they're given, what we have inside of it. So that will give more clarity and you can answer accordingly if there are any further questions. The same way, legal entity. How do you create the legal entity? Could you please explain? That means they are trying to understand your level of expertise and whether you created this legal entity or do you remember or not. So all the ways they are trying to understand. That's how they'll ask the questions. You have to answer to create the legal entity. First, we have to provide the legal entity name. First, country you have to select. The legal entity belongs to which country, you have to select the country. And you have to provide the legal entity name and you have to provide legal identification number, nothing but registration number. And you can enable, okay, payroll statutory unit and legal employer. Those two checkboxes you have to enable. And you have to select legal address and you have to provide the registration numbers as per the respective fields are available. So this is how you have to explain for the question like, how do you create the legal entity? Okay. So they can ask you the question related to this addresses and all. So what is the use of geographies information? You can explain. So when you create any addresses, that could be legal address or supplier customer address or our business locations address or business unit address or inventory organization address. So we have to provide the detailed information like that is belongs to which country, state, city, county, postal code. So instead of entering everything as a dynamic values, so we can load the geographies information which Oracle is providing in every instance. Loading geographies information, nothing but activating the geographies data within instance which is already available, so that that data we can use at the time of address creation so that our job will become easy. Okay, So system is Oracle is providing predefined geographies data. If you want to use it, we activate. Clearly, we can generally as a consultant in every implementation, as a mandatory, we do that. First, we activate it, then we'll start creating any addresses. We never go with the approach of creating addresses by entering the data as a dynamic field. Any data you can enter in the dynamic field, that is not acceptable in every implementation. Before you start creating addresses, mostly just the very beginning initial address is legal address only we create. So before we create legal address, we go and activate geography data that you can start using. So that's what you have to understand. The next question you can expect. So how many legal entities we have to create as a part of implementation? What is your answer? Your clear answer, otherwise ignore it. Anyone, please.
Depends on the number of registrations. So if you have
That
any
answer is more than enough. You don't need to explain anything when you get this question. Okay. So that means you know the actual base point. So how many legal entities we have to create? That always depends on the number of registrations. How many registrations we have, accordingly we have to create the legal entity. That's all. What do you mean by legal entity? That is another question. The company registration information we create in the system or we record in the system as a legal entity. That's all. And so other questions you may face related to legal entity. How many legal entities you can assign to single primary ledger? That is a question. What is your answer?
One to many.
More than one.
More than
My
one.
one to many not to see. My question is how many legal entities you can assign to primary ledger? Yes, what you said, like you answered in the different point of view. That is okay, but just direct answer. How many legal entities we can assign to one primary ledger?
How many registrations are there?
No. Already I'm telling how many legal entities. You say number. I'm not asking how many registrations. See, you have
Multiple.
Yeah, that's what. So how many you can assign means how many registrations. Again, you don't need to go and define the legal entities. Okay, if you say how many registrations means again you are saying how many registrations we have, those many legal entities, and again legal entity point you are connecting to primary ledger. Not required. Question is how many legal entities you can assign. So simply you can say multiple. Okay, multiple you can assign. If you have multiple, you will assign. If you have single, you will assign single only. That is another point. We are talking about how many you can assign. Multiple you can assign. That's it. So how many one legal entity you can assign to how many primary ledgers? One legal entity can be assigned to how many primary ledgers?
Only one.
Only one. If you assign one legal entity to one primary ledger, that won't be available to assign to another primary ledgers. This is a point you have to notice. So other question is, how many balancing what do you mean by balancing segment value? Okay. Okay, the question you can take as, what do you mean by balancing segment value? What do you mean by BSV? BSV stands for balancing segment value. So to which segment we are assigning primary balancing segment label, that segment values we call as a balancing segment values. What is the use of balancing segment values? The balancing segment will always balance the each and every transaction, debits and credits, and it will ensure that amounts are balancing. Okay, that is a point you can make a note for the question like, what do you mean by balancing segment values? Now here another question is, how many balancing segment values you can assign to one legal entity? How many balancing segment values we can assign to one legal entity? Anyone?
Minimum 2, sir.
What are those?
Oh, sorry.
Please respond. We are waiting. Minimum 2. Answer is correct. What are those?
This is primary segment, primary balancing segment, and the natural account segment.
Yeah, this is how interviewer can drive you into wrong answers. Already you answered wrong, and again they can just drive you into the same path.
Okay.
What I said, yeah, you said correct. What are those? Then you will think on the next point. Yeah. So answer is wrong. I am talking about how many balance and segment values. I'm not talking about segments. How many balance and segment values you can assign to legal entity?
Multiple?
Multiple. There is no limit. Okay. There is no limit. How many balance and segment values? You have those many you can assign. Say you have single registration. That means single legal entity. You have 100 branches in that country. Then 100 balance and segment values you can assign to same legal entity. That's how you can. Another very, very important question is P2P and O2C cycles. You have to be very, very clear about this P2P and O2C cycles. Whatever you discuss, in the same way you should be able to explain. You no need to add on top of it anything else. Don't add anything. Don't trim anything. Whatever we discuss, explain as it is. That is more than enough. Okay, already I was talking about how to explain if you get questions about P2P or O2C cycle. Let me repeat once again. Okay, in same process, like how you have to explain, I'll repeat, it won't take much time. So if you get question like, so explain P2P cycle, you can explain like this. P2P stands for procure to pay cycle. So whenever we have any requirement in the organization, we raise the purchase requisition as a part of purchase inventory department. Once it get approved, the inventory department will pass that information to purchasing department. Purchasing department will raise the RFQ, request for quotations. They get the quotation from the suppliers and they do the quotation analysis. They choose the best quotation. Finally, they'll place the order to supplier with approvals, which we call as purchase order. Whenever our organization will receive the material from supplier, we'll record the GRN. The material, whatever we received, if there is any damage, we can return those to supplier that we record as a purchase returns. Based on GRN information, payables department creates purchase invoice, and once we arrive the due dates, we'll make the payment to supplier, and that means we record the payment in the payables department. The payment information payables department will pass to cash department, or you can say cash management application. Okay, so payables department will share the information to cash management, and cash management we can perform the bank statement reconciliations. The invoice, whatever we record in the payables, if that payables department, if the invoices belongs to asset related invoice, the payables department will share that information to asset department. Based on that information, asset department creates asset in their books and they calculate the depreciations. Finally, all the applications are from all the departments. We can send the data to general ledger application for financial reporting purpose. Within this P2P cycle, the core departments, or you can say applications, any term you can refer. Okay, within this P2P cycle, the core departments are inventory, purchasing, and payables departments. This is how you have to explain. This is how you have to answer exactly. So you have to connect the sequence, you have to manage the way how you are presenting. That is very important. You should not struggle when you are explaining, so that you can build with your practice only. Okay, practice and give presentations as many times as possible from your end. So that will build your confidence and it will build the flow when you are explaining. So that's what everybody is required. They know very well what you are when you are attending interview, but still they are interested to take you if you are okay with the skill, the knowledge, if you are able to speak out. If you know that is not enough, if you are able to speak, that's what they need. The next question is O2C. Can you please explain about O2C cycle? O2C stands for order to cash. So this process can get initiated whenever we get order from the customer. So when we get order from the customer, we record that order as a sales order in the order management. You can say application name also, nothing wrong. Okay, we record in the order management and we check with inventory whether stock is available or not. If stock is available, we book the sales order And whenever there is a item movement within the inventory, like moving the material from sub-inventory to staging, we track the same in the order management as a pick release. Whenever we move the material from our inventory to customer location or else from our organization to customer organization, that we track in the system as ship confirmation. And if any returns from the customer, that we record as a sales returns. Based on ship confirmation details, receivables department will create invoice in their books. Whenever they get the payment from customer, they'll create the receipt. The receivables department will pass the receipts information to cash department, or you can say cash management. Okay, cash management department, so that cash management can perform the bank statement reconciliations. Finally, all the data will send to GL for financial reporting purpose. So this is what you can explain. The bottom line you can say, so the process starts with a sales order. When we get the order, the process ends when we get the payment from the customer. In case of P2P, you can address the process will get initiated with a purchase requisition. The process ends by making the payment. So this is how you should be able to explain. If you know this is how it is, that is not enough. Nobody required, whether you know or not. If you are able to speak, that's what required. Our course is functional course. Our course is functional course. That means you should be able to talk. Along with that, you should be able to do in the system also. But nobody is going to test you, okay, how you are going to do in the system. First, always they will test you if there is any job opportunity when you attend for interview. They will test whether you are able to speak about the same or not. Other side, definitely, how this can be done in the system, they will ask you. If you have a proper practice, you will be able to answer. You should be able to explain. You should be able to explain. If you want to explain, you should know that. If you know that, you should remember it, then it will help you. Again, to explain, say you know that and you remember, but if you don't have a proper practice of giving presentation on each and every concept, you cannot, when you go for interview, you know everything, but you don't have a experience of giving presentation on that. That is the reason you fail. So practice. You give presentation to anyone, no issues. Okay, they may agree, they may not agree, doesn't matter. You are practicing, that is your target. Give presentation. Okay, so one day you can take these 3 topics and you explain. We discussed and you did in the system, but that is not enough. In interview, if you are going to answer, how you are answering, that really matter. For that you are practicing. For one day you can pick these 3 topics and you find somebody in your home, brother or sister or someone else, and you just tell them like, I'm going to explain this. You may like, may not like, but I need feedback from you how I'm explaining. Are you able to understand when I'm presenting? That's what I need. Then you just took the time and you can explain and take the feedback, whatever they are suggesting, respect and do, try to fill those gaps. They may say, yeah, you are explaining, I'm getting, but the flow is not proper. You are not present in expected flow. You are just stopping and connecting, again stopping and connecting. Then that means you are not recollecting. If you are not recollecting, means maybe your preparation is not enough. Again, go through and read so that you can remember. When you are explaining easily, you can fetch to explain. So that's how you can develop the skill towards the presentation. So next day you can just pick 2-3 topics what we covered and go through, read and remember, then start giving your presentation. In another day you may pick like only chart of accounts concept and only enterprise structure. This is what we have to practice. So these will help you and it will keep you in the same track all the time after getting into job also. So that's how you have to explain P2P and O2C cycles. When you talk about enterprise structure, they will ask you, could you please explain enterprise structure? You can say like, when we talk about enterprise structure, we have a different enterprise units as a part of enterprise structure. So top level, we can have enterprise. Under enterprise, we'll have a division. Under division, we can have primary ledger. Under primary ledger, we can have legal entity. Under legal entity, we can have business unit. Under business unit, inventory organization. It ends with a inventory organization. Don't connect any additional subcomponents to inventory like sub inventory, locator, this and that. That is really nonsense. Okay. So it starts with enterprise, ends with the inventory organization. Then they can ask many cross questions that you can answer definitely based on whatever we discuss related to enterprise. They can ask you how many enterprises you can create. Your answer should be only one enterprise. That too, Oracle is providing the enterprise. What is the purpose of enterprise? To manage the employees' information, we need enterprise. The next question is, how do you decide how many divisions are required? You can say division is completely optional component. These are all points we discussed. What we discussed, I am again just framing and answering as a question and answer. So how do you decide how many divisions are required? First, you can say division is completely optional component as per enterprise structure. You may take the different type of businesses as divisions, or you may take the different geographies as a different divisions, but division level, you cannot record any transaction. No application can be mapped. This is what we discussed. How many primary ledgers we have to create? Already the question we covered. Okay, for each country, we have to create one primary ledger. Okay, that's how you can answer. If there are any cross questions, you can answer. Okay, relevant points we discussed. If you want to create more than one, what could be the business case, etc. we discussed, but that is not at all recommended also we discussed. How many legal entities we have to create? Based on number of registrations, we create legal entities. How many business units we have to create? We discussed. The basic element to derive the number of business units are the number of branches. How many branches they have, those many business units. Sometimes they may have one branch, you may create 10 business units. That means in same branch, they are doing 10 type of different businesses. So this is a point we have to notice. So how many inventory organizations we have to create? How many warehouses you have in the business? Those many inventory organizations we have to create. The next question they can ask, which applications can be mapped at what level as per enterprise structure level? HCM applications can be mapped at enterprise level, and division level, no applications can be mapped. And primary ledger level, you can map GL and FA applications. Cash legal entity level, you can map cash management application, and most of the applications are mapped at business unit level, like purchasing, order management, and payables, receivables, project costing, project billing. There are many other applications which you can map. Those are not in the scope of our learning, not required. Remember those points. And inventory organization level, you can map inventory and other manufacturing applications like bill of material and work in process, BOM and WIP applications also. So, but you remember inventory, that is enough for us. And they can ask you the question, what level you can generate the reports? The level of transactions we are recording is at BU level. When you are recording the transaction BU level, you can produce the reports also BU level. But the total BU's data will send to GL application for financial reporting. You can generate the reports at BU level, or else total data you can send to GL. Within the GL application, you can generate the reports, but the data is classified business unit wise only. You can say BU level, you can generate the reports, or you can send total data to GL from all the applications. You will be able to generate the reports in GL application also. Data is available business unit wise. That means BU level only you can generate the reports. So this is what you have to answer. If I include yesterday topic also, what are the roles Oracle is providing for general ledger application? Oracle is providing 5 seeded roles for general ledger application. Those are general accounting manager, general accountant, financial analyst, controller, and chief financial officer. So these are the points we discussed, and what else we discussed, those also you focus on that. Mostly primarily these are the points. And definitely they can ask you, when you talk about the chart of accounts and all, they can ask you the questions, what are the best practices we follow to design the chart of accounts? What are the points we discussed? Please remember. Okay, when we are creating the chart of accounts, the balance and segment values, what you create in the chart of account, those should be equal to the number of business units. That is the first point. Second point is make sure that you have future segments in our chart of accounts. And if they want to record transaction internally, suggest to the clients to have a intercompany segment. And to facilitate reporting, you can suggest to have a parent and child relation. Okay, don't take segments which are required only for one or two applications. Application specific data you don't include as a segment in the chart of accounts. And always you suggest to the client to have only one primary balancing segment label, or simply you can say one balancing segment. You suggest one balancing segment for a client. Frankly speaking, don't say we can have three balancing segments in the chart of account. Then they tend to have more than one also. We will get into the issues. There are some challenges if you do that. By suggesting one, they are not going to lose anything. That's how reality required. So as a flexibility, as a future, Oracle is providing three, but always you suggest as a one. You are not going to say you can have one balancing segment. You ask them what level you want to generate the reports. They say, then you can map that segment as a primary balancing segment label that you can assign. Don't talk about anything about balancing segment labels. So these are the points you have to understand. Hope you got what I was trying to say. So this is how you have to answer for those relevant questions. So follow the same process, okay, how we are explaining. So for any question, the same you can implement for rest of concepts what we are going to discuss. After a few more classes, again, we will stop. I'll take one more session. So what are the questions you can expect, how to answer, so that you can get to know. So the way of answering, that's very important. If you are answering, yes, that is the answer, but they classify the answers. Good answer, bad answer, and something else. Okay. So you may include the content in the answer. Right? Say if they take two answers, and two answers, the content may be available, what exactly they're expecting, how you are formatting it, how you are explaining, what confidence levels you have when you are explaining. Okay. So say sometimes they'll confuse you. Okay. So if you say how to create, if they ask you how to create chart of accounts, if they ask the question, if you explain, say you explained everything as per reality, but they can ask you the question, are you sure one thing is missing? What is that? I don't agree with you. They say these points, then you will start thinking. If you are very clear, you can say, I'm very sure about it. And if you don't know something, you don't try to answer. You be very honest. I never worked on this. I'm not sure about it. Our best answer is, I don't remember now. I don't recall. These are the good answers for unknown questions. Okay, you can say you don't know if you don't know. If you are not sure about it, you know that, but you are not very sure. You are not clear about it. Tell them you are not clear about it. And or else simply you can say, I don't recall it. It happens. See, when you are working as a consultant, say you have a 4 years, 5 years of experience, every day, all the ways you are not going to work on those. As per your role in the project, you might be working only for payables from last 2 years or 3 years. When they are asking the questions on fixed assets, you may not be in the positions to answer. Then there should be some clarification. You have to talk about, so I have been working on so-and-so application. I think 2 years back, I touched this application. I lost that content of this. I can just brush up and I can get ready since I have experience. This is how the experienced people can answer. But you get ready with everything what you are learning for your interview purpose. And again, another point is, yes, you can say you don't recollect and you are not sure about it and you don't know for certain things which are acceptable, which are very, very important, which are basics. You should not say this. Okay. You should not say this. If they ask you the question, how to create the primer ledger, if you say, I don't recollect, they can collect the information what you are. So what is very, very important, what is the basic, what is very crucial related to the content, that you should remember. Something which is not very important and it is somewhere, some checkbox and this and that. If you say you don't recollect, they agree with you. That happens. That is true. You cannot remember everything, but key content you should remember. So you have to think on that point. So that is the reason I'm telling right from beginning of our course, please make a note of each and every point and read it till you remember. Okay, you just when you attend the class, I'm very sure you will attend the you will understand what we are discussing. That is my responsibility. I'll take care of it. If you understand that is not enough from your side, you have to come up with your own responsibility. That is making each and every point as a note and reading till you remember and giving presentation. So these will help you in your first interview. You can crack it. You can crack the interview with your first interview. You no need to attend 10-20 companies interview to clear your interview task. Okay, if you follow all these whatever I'm explaining, you can crack your first interview only. So give presentations, you can get a confidence and you can remember each and everything. Since you are explaining, that will become your experience. Even if you don't have experience, if you speak about it, will become experience. If you get an opportunity of discussing the same concept with others, say you are doing the course along with your friend or somebody is doing, when we discuss about this content, you please discuss in English only. If you are discussing in your own language, your mother tongue, in the interview, nobody is going to accept the same language to explain this. So you will lose the opportunity of getting experience by discussing this content in English. So you always talk about this, anything related to our subject in English only. So that will bring some level of experience for you. So these are the points you can notice when you prepare the content, whatever we cover. Yeah. Any other questions on this, please? So we're done for today. If you have any questions, you can stay back. If no questions, so we'll connect tomorrow same time. In tomorrow's session, we will focus on how to assign the primary ledger to GL roles, whatever we assigned in the last session. So opening the GL periods and understanding the statuses, how to create the transaction, the GL, so that you can understand the purpose of balancing segment label. And if time permits, we will pick a few other topics and we'll discuss. Okay. So
Lakshman, I have one question, Lakshman.
please.
Yeah, I'm confused. What are the exact number of segment labels? As per my knowledge,
You can see
primary
that.
balance.
One second. I clearly mentioned that point. When we deal with the concept called as a rapid implementation, there you can see exact number. In these test instances, what you see, there are some dummy labels also. Somebody added. Okay. So there is a concept called as a rapid implementation. In that rapid implementation concept, you will see the exact labels which Oracle is providing there. You can take the number or what exactly we have. Fine.
Okay, Lakshman.
Yeah. Any other
Lakshman,
questions, please?
yeah, Lakshman, can you please share me the instance again? The rapid implementation is not working in the 3 instance you shared because the sort of
One second. Yeah, we'll talk those points later. Now, just let me take some questions, or else let me just pass the recording and let me answer. Yeah, those points you can note. Yeah, now you can go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Actually, my company is for using 2 instances. One is for US and one is for India. For in US, they have multiple countries also. For India, in India also they are using multiple legal entities in other currency also. My doubt is we can change the time zone actually for the foreign countries.
We have profile option. We have profile option. You can set the time zone. Okay, the territory time you can set, or else you can set user level also. Instance level you can set, or else the user is working from which country, that time zone also you can set. User level time zone you can set, or else for entire instance you can set the time zone. Possible.
Do we have option to change it at business unit level?
No. Business unit level not. Entire instance level you can set, or else you can set at user level. What you can do is, if you want to set at business unit level, how many business users are working for that business unit, set time zone at that business users level, that would be applicable for that business unit only.
Okay.
That's how you can go with the workaround. Directly
actually what the issue is we are facing,
Yeah.
right? We are working in Indian time zone. When we are entering the
I
transaction.
got your question. So
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
option is not available, but you can achieve that. How? You can set, okay, India time zone for the business unit who are working for the same. The people who are working from India for that business unit, that user level, you set time zone as India. That will resolve the issue. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions, please? Seems to no questions. If no questions, that's all for today. We'll connect tomorrow same time. Thank you all. See you tomorrow.